Hare Shri Nam Sankirtan ki jai. Om Premanande. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurumritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Ajunulambita Bhujo Anagabodhato Sankirtanai Kapitaro Kamalaya Tasso Vishwamburo Dvijaburo Yugodham Palo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavavataro Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahoto Gauraya Pushpavanto Chitro Samdotamo Vandeham Shri Ramakrishna Pabhaya Sharanam Prabhu Sukado Paramanando Sundaro Sivapriyo He Krishna Parama Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanda Radha Namaste Tapta Kancana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwavanusute Devi Pranamami Hare Shri Gauri Vaishnava Guru Parampara ki jai. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Gaur Premanande. This morning we begin chapter 23. Yesterday we discussed a few verses from the end of chapter 22 that lead into chapter 23 by way of Krishna's glorifying the trees, from which he of course instructed all of us, and brought his friends from their simple and boyishness to some kind of sense of manhood and virtue and high ideas and so forth, which are just not typical thoughts that people in the world in general have. Ideas of self-sacrifice and so to speak of boys, young boys, not even adolescents. So he brought them there. Now there's a number of reasons for that. Either through by way of speaking of the virtues of the trees, setting them as examples of selfishness, of givers, and so forth. And this, of course, he's setting up a contrast between them and the Brahmins, the husbands of the Brahmins engaged in Vedic sacrifice, so who are selfish, as we'll see. But also, he was able to suppress their hunger for the moment, because they had been gone for a long time, and by Krishna's own enthusiasm to reciprocate with the bhakti of the Yajnik Brahman's wife, the Yajna Patnis, after a long time of their lifetimes of worship and so forth. Lunch was not so much on his mind. So either they forgot to take the lunch, which seems hard to believe, or another arrangement was made by Krishna and lunch was sent, but to an area that he was not going to be there because he couldn't as well. This is a story, of course, as we go forward. We know that the cowherd boys come home full of stories, right? The slaying of monsters and all kinds of adventures and whatnot that had to be taken by the elders with a grain of salt. But this is a story they're not going to repeat. Just like the four boys who were there for the Vastraharna, the stealing the clothes. It's not something they're going to repeat at home. So what is going to occur, the main subject here, Krishna's interaction with and blessing, his blessing of the wives of the Brahmins. This is an astonishing experience, but is kept under cover and not shared with the elders, right? So while Krishna may have made arrangements, you want to go early today, send lunch at this bower and this sub-forest and so forth. But he wasn't there. He seemed to be a miscommunication, but he had orchestrated the whole thing. Meanwhile, the boys, they should be hungry by now. Then again, there's no hunger in Braj, there's no thirst. This is the transcendental reality of it, but there's hunger then at the same time within the context of a bhakti rasa, right? And so he suppressed their hunger by giving them high thoughts to think about, and if you get hungry, start thinking about yourself. And he tells them about, showcases the virtues in his own vision of the trees as givers and so on and so forth. So they're very much astounded by this and brought to some kind of like manhood where you man up and prepare to sacrifice for higher ideal and so forth. And so they move through the Ashok forest and come to the Jamuna, where, of course, the cows need to be watered. And as the cows are watered, so the cowherd boys will also take water. It's described in the text that they took water with their hands. This is typically not the case for people in general. They would take with a glass, a cup of some kind, but the boys, they want to be, and I think we heard a little about this morning when we were reading about the apricot leaf. As cows are, so are we, with regard to Krishna's refusing to take shoes or take an umbrella. Cows don't have umbrellas, cows don't have shoes. You're going with them, you want to be one with them, and so he refused such things that his mother insisted upon for protection. So similarly, when the cows drank first, after the cows drank, then they drank with their hands, to be similar to where the cows are taken without a cup. The implication there also is that they let the cows bathe first, but the Jamuna remained pure and pristine nonetheless, for humans, if you will, to drink. And so some virtues of the Jamuna are alluded to. This is at the end of the previous chapter. And from the Jamuna, Krishna takes them back to Ashokban, one of the sub-forests, right, within Vrindavan. And you can go there today, but there's a knoll there, nice little knoll. Knoll, a little rise in the land, little knoll. So he brought the boys there and settled them on the knoll, which would be the place where they would ultimately meet the Brahmanes. And there, it is in that place then that all these high thoughts and everything have dissipated, and the cowherds are back to their normal selves, if you will. And so they address Ram and Krishna. Sri Gopa Uchu. The Gopas said, Rama Rama Mahabaho, Krishna Dushta Nibarhanaha, Eshavai Bharate Kshunnas, Kachchamkin, Kartum Arhataha. So they here they glorify Ram and they glorify Krishna. They speak Ram's name first, and this is proper according to the Maryada, proper conduct. He's the elder brother, he's senior to Krishna, so they glorify him first, and they invoke his name, Ram. This is one of the names he's given at birth. It means can mean who gives pleasure. And so they're saying, Ram, Ram, you're very strong. There are some other manuscripts where instead of Mahabahu, it's Mahabirya. So very, very powerful. Here, Mahabahu means long arms, same implication, right? You're very powerful. We saw this in the Denikasura Leela. We called you on it at that time. At that time, you had not done anything. And boasting about how you will protect Krishna in the forest, uh, telling Yashoda she has nothing to worry about. I'll be there. Who can challenge me? We believe it, but we haven't seen it of you. So they pinched his ego at that time. The same phrase was used. Ram, Ram, Mahabahu. Oh, Ram, got big arms. What have you ever done? He had not slayed a demon. He had not done anything to demonstrate his prowess. And Krishna had slain Bakasura. Not Bakasura, Vatsasura, Agasura. And he had something to do, it would appear, with Trinavarta's death, Putana's. There's a difference between those childhood slayings of demons and the budding of boyhood and the slaying of demons, where it becomes apparent that there's no way to get around it. Krishna did this, which is an example of heroism, which is one of his qualities that serves as an udipana for Sakyaras. It's something that will bring the Sakyaras to the fore, to the front, so to speak. Right? That's the purpose of the udipana bhava. Therefore, it has kind of a causal quality. So you understand what I'm saying? Yes, Krishna killed Putin. We know that, but all it did was suck her breast. So everybody in the village has reason to think it wasn't Krishna. The cart fell. Shakatasura. They didn't know that Krishna kicked the cart over. Cart fell, and he could have fallen on him. How terrible, but it didn't. So when he starts to move into his boyhood at the end of his Kumara Lila, then he's cow herding, calf herding, and they start to see it. So they've seen that from Krishna, but they hadn't seen it from Ram at that time until the slaying of Dhanukasura, and they egged him on. It's a beautiful, beautiful chapter. So here the same words are used: Ram, Rama, Mahabahu, and Krishna Dushta Nibarhana. And Krishna is the destroyer of the Dushta, of the wicked. So these are your virtues. Now there's some humor in here, in their play of words and so forth. You're the slayers of, you're very powerful. You give pleasure to others. You the younger brother, you're named Krishna, which means there's who is the Paramananda, the name for God, of course, right? And we are completely identified with you, but we're feeling hungry. What's up? This shouldn't be happening. It shouldn't be happening. So they say, Esha vai bharate trinas, tachchantim kartumarati. They say, you should be, they make a kind of a command to them. You should be remedying this problem. This shouldn't be happening. This isn't supposed to happen. Devotees are not supposed to go hungry. Nobody's supposed to go hungry. This is they've underscored this as the biggest problem: hunger. There are all kinds of problems. Of course, if you don't have food, well, that's a big one. A shabai means indeed. This is really a big problem. Hunger. The world over, right? Here we'll learn that by Ram Nam, we can end all the hunger of the world. It's possible. So they're kind of in humor, challenging the boys, and their hunger by Leela Shakti is coming to the fore. Now, while it's coming to the fore, it's their own hunger, but at the same time, they are so identified with Krishna that they're also thinking, and Ram, they're thinking that if we're hungry, they must be hungry. So this is when we look at it from the point of view of prem, they have no selfish desire, but their own hunger is indicating to them, Krishna and I, Ram and Krishna and us, so we're one. If we're hungry, they must be hungry. We cannot tolerate their hunger. We're asking them to solve our hunger problem, but our concern is for their hunger at the same time. And they're making so they're totally now back, if you will, in boyhood. And there's, as I said, there's some humor connected to this, and there's some insistence on their part. You should be doing this. And this is a big thing for in the world of Janabad Vaishnavas in particular. We sing in the morning. What do we sing? Chaturbidhasri Bhagavat Prasad. Swaramriptam Hari Bhakta Sangam. And the spiritual master is very pleased to see the devotees having prasadam. This was a big thing for Prabhupada. There's so many. When not sing that prayer, if you knew Prabhupada, then so many pastimes will come in your mind. Like having all the devotees in Australia, one by one, bring 1 gallon of ghee to the festival in Mayapur every year. They would bring, so that not only all the devotees would be served nicely, but everything would be cooked in ghee. This is his idea. Right? Puris, olive oil, nice prasad. It was a very big issue for him, appropriately so. He sometimes referred to Krishna consciousness, as he called it, as a kitchen religion. Kitchen religion. And when the devotees were pleased taking prasadam, then he was pleased. And if you go to earlier times in New York, he used to make gulab jamuns, put them in a jar, and they would be his, what did he call them? ISKCON bullets. Anybody feeling a little disturbed, here, have the gulab jamuns. That was his solution. They would take a gulab jamun and they would give a sugar rush, I guess. But it was more than that. We had such faith in Mahaprasad. It was a big thing because in concern for Prabhupada, because his students previously were coming from meat-eating families and so forth. And to overcome that, he thought that it could be a challenge for students. It really wasn't for most of us. A lot of us, like myself, we had already become vegetarians, and it was something that was some sensibilities for ethical reasons that was surfacing. But I think that aside from that, and in being even aware of that, he thought if they taste the blood of the cow in the form of the ghee, they'll give up the taste for eating the flesh of the cows. And he thought this was going to be a big challenge in the Western world. You're in India, you're a sadhu, you hear things about America or Europe, what it's like. You don't know entirely. You hear all the women are prostitutes over there. They believe it. They have no other information to go. Or they maybe not. They see otherwise, and oh, it's actually a reality. It's not like that. So prasadam was his secret weapon, right? So he loved Sunday love feasts, bring everybody to the feast. And I remember I went to the first love feast because I was in San Francisco, living in Haight-Ashbury at the time, and we were broke. And so let's go to the Krishna temple. It was over in the Mission District at that time of San Francisco. It was an old funeral home. Turned into a temple, but turned from death into life, right? So they made good temples. They were nice buildings. They made, for nice places too. Nice. You drive by and you see here's a beautiful cemetery. It's a beautiful, expensive piece of land and a nice shrine and so forth for burying people. So anyway, they turned it into a temple, and so. I think it was the first love feast that I went to, and we went because there was free meal there, right? I'd met the devotees just brief at the Woodstock Festival. I saw them there. They looked like deers to me because when we were trying to get to the festival, it was so. The last mile or two, you had to walk, couldn't take a car. At that time, it was very hot in the middle of the day. And some people were selling their tickets to people who were coming. It was free. It was declared a free concert at that point. That was uncool, I thought. And anyway, I saw these devotees, and they would just seem to leap through the crowd boundlessly. I thought they're like deers or something. They're handing out peacock feathers and incense and so forth. They showed up a couple places. I didn't get a chance to talk to them, but anyway, so everybody has a long and interesting story, right? But the love feast was a big attraction. Right? In those days, you could have a vegetarian feast. Especially would have these exotic dishes like chutneys, pakoras, all the variety of tastes and so on and so forth. And talk about reincarnation and Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You're not God. Anti-Mayavad. Chant Hare Krishna. People would join in droves. It was a particular time, right? It was just probably just sent to take advantage of and get a lot of traction for Gaudiya Vaishnavism from the Americas, North America, and from there, other parts of the world. But prasadam was his secret weapon. He used to tell us householders that they should cook at home, and after preparing and offering to the deity, go outside and shout 3 times, "Is anyone hungry? Anyone hungry? Anyone? Take prasad." So I used to do that in my apartment across the street. One day I invited Prabhupada to come to my apartment for taking lunch. Yeah, and then, but his secretary said, "You can't invite him to come like that." I said, "What do you mean? He's my guru." So he nixed it, but I think Prabhupada would have come. So anyway, prasadam was a huge affair. And so we had great faith in Mahaprasadam. In the early days in Los Angeles, we would get a piece of wax paper, was our plate, and they put oatmeal on it, a nice big piece of ginger, a couple of, about 6 or 8, chickpeas, so a couple of pieces of orange, something like that. And you had to eat the oatmeal before it melted the plate, and egg, just pop a piece of what did I say? Ginger. It was very exotic, different. And then they would come around. Someone would come around with the Mahaprasad. Oh, and everybody was just paying obeisance and get a little piece of a pakora or a piece of burfi. It was a huge thing. So we had such faith in Mahaprasad. It was very, very telling, very powerful, compelling. And the deity worship. This was big things for Prabhupada established. I think the deity worship is a characteristic of this kind, highest quality of deity worship you can find there still today. But the Mahaprasad, it was such a big deal. For me, it became very interesting because at a certain point, Agaba the Ramaswar made a competition. Whoever would distribute the most books that week would get the deity's Mahaprasadam for lunch. The deity's plate, the whole plate, like Jagannath's plate. There were 3 plates. Did you get Jagannath's plate, Gaura's plate, or Rukmini and Dwarkatis's plate? So there was only a couple of us going out. So I thought, well, I'll try for that, And I won. And then I won again and ran. Remember Visal?
Yeah.
He used to win. He was quite heavy set, and he really liked that Mahaprasadam. And I started winning, and boy, was he upset. So then he got a little welfare check somehow, maybe his Social Security was a little over. And then he used to buy books secretly and give them out and say that he sold them so that he could win the Mahaprasad. Anyway, for Mahaprasad, it's okay. Right? But he was found out. The way he was found out was that I still distributed more books than him. Then he was frustrated and told me what he was doing. I said, it's not a problem. Here, take some prasadam. So I just get the plate every day. I was getting the plate every day, and I was thinking, this is the power by which I can go out and sell the books. I'm getting the power from this. So I was very careful to eat everything on the plate and so forth. But after a while, I found that my thinking started to change by the power of Mahaprasadam. And I thought, I'm thinking I'm getting the power from this. That's how I actually thought. There's no Chaitanya Charitamrita at the time or anything like that, where there's a similar story. I'm not comparing myself to Raghunath Das, but I had similar thoughts that came in my mind. I'm thinking that I'm getting this Mahaprasad and it's giving me the power, but actually I'm just keeping it to myself. I'm selfish. I will get, if I really want power, I'll give this Mahaprasad to other devotees. That's what I should do. So then I got the plate and I would distribute the plate to all the devotees. And then I would wait till everyone ate. And then before I ate anything, this was like Los Angeles, so the weather was clement. And oftentimes the devotees would take lunch outside on the lawn and so forth. I would go and I would find any prasadam that fell anywhere in the course of eating. And I would collect that, put it on the plate. And then I would pay my respect to that, and I would honor that. And only after that, then I would take my meal. So this is the real power, you see, of Mahaprasad. It can make you think like this. There is no hunger in Gaudiya Vaishnavism because we don't eat. We honor Mahaprasad. Right? What a beautiful thing. It's like Uddhava in Bhagavatam. He says, in the 11th canto, he says, and my renunciation is that I wear the vestments of Krishna. Now, Krishna was a prince. You can imagine how royal and what high quality fashion attire he had. So the hand-me-downs of Krishna were given to Uddhava. He said, "This is my renunciation." And he's, of course, comparing this to the renunciates, the naked sannyasins, right? What are they called? Those Nagababas coming down from the Himalayas, naked. I remember saw one, I didn't see him, but Vrindaranya saw one in Vrindavan. And he started chasing her. Blonde girl from there. She had so-called Nagababas. There may be some real Nagababas, right? That's not what Nagababas are supposed to do. So, like Sukadeva is the original Nagababa, but of course he was a Vaishnava. Anyway, so Uddhava say, this is my renunciation. And it's really a very beautiful idea because it's one thing to stop taking, as I often say, exploiting, which is the realm of karma. It has implications. If you take, you owe, and so you perpetuate material existence. So if you get wise to that, then you stop taking. That's moving from the karma marg to gyan marg. Now there's no knowledge in karma. There's only action. And in gyan, there's no action, there's only knowledge. Because now you have knowledge that action in relation to objects of the senses for senses satisfaction is a problem. It's a recipe not for happiness, but for suffering. What little happiness I get from the things that I acquire, I attach to, will be turned into sadness when they're gone. So this is some just very insightful but basic idea of Indian wisdom, of Gyan, right? So in karma, we move without knowledge. And in Gyan, we have knowledge, so we don't move. We can become a contemplative. We stop taking. But we move from it's mine to it is I. We think the things are important. Let me get them, and I'll become bigger and better and more whole by acquiring them. So we think it's about things. But then when you see through that illusion, you think it's about me. I am more whole than all the things put together. I am of another nature. So we go from my consciousness to I consciousness. And unless you go beyond I consciousness, you'll go back to my consciousness. How can you go beyond I consciousness? You have to go to, it's not about me, it's all about him. And then you can, if you don't do that, means if you don't factor bhakti into your spiritual pursuit, even if you have high consciousness, Bhagavatam says, you fall down from there. Because bhakti is the visa to go to the other, to beyond the gunas. It is nirguna itself. Sattva-guna, by sattva-guna, you can know the self. By sattva-guna and such self-knowledge, you can't leave material existence. So, and of course, if you factor bhakti in as it should be, just as the reasoning is there, why should I chase after things when I myself am more whole than all the things in the world put together? Okay, that's intelligent. Let me be wise and not pursue things, but pursue the self. But then if you learn what the self unto itself is not whole because it's connected to another. It's a part of another. And its full potential is to have a relationship with it. That's what it's all about. Jivera Swarup Hoy Krishna Nityadas. Dasa Bhuta Hare Guna. This is the position of the jiva. It's meant to serve Bhagwan. It exists only for that purpose. This is its nature. When it's uncovered. So if we don't recognize, if we recognize this, if we understand this, just like, the more knowledge you get, the easier it is to give up things. So the more you get the Sambandha Gyan, knowledge in relation to Bhakti, in relation to Bhagwan, then the easier it is to give up the self, even. And then the full sense of the term, then, fully bringing Bhakti into our life. This is the Braj Bhakti. This is what these Gopas are experiencing. They're experiencing not that I'll improve by getting things, not that I'm bigger than all things, not that I'm part and parcel of him, partially, but more, not that I'm his, but he's mine. This characterizes, we're back to minus, right? The other end of the spectrum. So that if you go far enough to the right, you end up going to the left, right? So something like that. So there's my, on the one hand, thinking about things, and he is mine. He is mine. This is the characteristic of praying. Now, there are different degrees of that and so on and so forth, but we distinguish praying from even mukti as a result of bhakti, which any kind of mukti requires, but mukti in Vaikuntha, typically the thought is there, I'm his. But therefore we distinguish our prayojan, our goal, from other sampradayas by way of saying it's not mukti, it's prem, and the prem is characterized by what we see in Braj. In the broad sense of minus, he's ours. He's part of our village. He's my son. How's that? Yashoda thinks he's my son. Right? The cows cowherds are thinking he and I we're one. There's a kind of minus in obviously in Madhurya Bhav too. That's another thing where there's a differentiation between Madhu Sneha and Grita Sneha. But that's a different topic. The broader sense, I just want to distinguish from that for those who are aware, listening, but the general and overriding, if you will, even I think we could say the Swarup Lakshan of the prem that we are pursuing is that it's characterized in this way by sense of he is mine. Mine is. How do we get there talking about prasad?
The cowherd boys were feeling Krishna. He's hungry, but not that they were hungry, so he was feeling the hunger also.
Right. So if we take Mahaprasadam, we honor it. Then I was saying that we don't eat, we only honor prasad. This is Vaishnavism. There's no problem for us. We honor prasad and we give prasad to others. Right? This is the life of the devotee. So there's no hunger for the devotee. But here we find hunger in the context of the Leela, and they're thinking Krishna's hungry, we're hungry, Krishna must be hungry. The two of us are one, right? He's mine. Another way of saying he and I are one. He must be, we're hungry, he must be hungry. So in prema, they're demanding of him and even challenging him. We've seen it, we've heard it, okay, but I could have slain Aghasur too.
Yeah.
And they're right. They're right, they could have. We would think, what? I told us to, I said, I can't believe that the coward boys could have slain Bakasur or Aghasur. You don't understand who they are. Who are these people? What is their power? They have the power to control Krishna. What is an Aghasur or Bakasur? But because, of course, these are wonderful feats of Aishvarya, if you will, in the Prakat Leela, but that's being orchestrated by Leela Shakti, that Krishna kills them rather than the boys, so that we can know that he's Swami Bhagavan. They could have done it. They're proud that he's done it. They'll glorify him that he did it. But they can also think, we could have done it. And they're thinking, we say these things about you, we're saying them now, but what is the proof? You've killed this demon, that demon, another demon, but you cannot do away with hunger. That's the real demon, they say. For young boys, especially, out in the forest, where we get energy to play, they're saying, this is a bigger demon than all the demons you've slayed. Hunger. That's what they're saying here. And if you want to really live up to the epithets which we're invoking in glorification of you and praise of you, then you had better, they said, you ought to do this. You better do this. Otherwise, we might discount it, what we say. Ram, Mahabahu, and I'm hungry. Krishna, what is it? Dushta Nibarana. Maybe, but you have not slayed hunger. So this is the thinking, right? Then Sri Sukavacha, Sukadev continues the narrative. He says, Iti Vignapito Gopaya, Bhagavan Devaki Sutta, Bhaktaya Viprabharyaya, Prasidan Idam Abravit. So, thus entreated by the cowherd boys, Bhagwan Devaki Sutta, Bhagawan, who is the son of Devaki, he says again, Bhagawan, who is the son of Devaki, because this is the thinking too immature. Not everyone thinks he's Bhagawan, but he's thinking of his bhaktas there, and as I've said earlier, bhakti has reached a point now where it warrants that they have union. Their separation has reached a point that Krishna cannot tolerate his separation from them anymore. Separation that fosters the union. The whole Prakat Leela, in one sense, is paritranaya sadhunam. Other things go on. Vinashaya traduskritam dharma samstapanartaya. He establishes dharma, he deals with the miscreants, but paritranaya sadhunam. Now, what kind of protection? This means protection of the devotees. What kind of protection do devotees need? They need to be protected from the pangs of separation. This is their only problem. They have no hunger, they have no problem. They can tolerate anything, but this becomes intolerable. And as it becomes intolerable for them, the Prakat Leela manifests. There are always sadhakas in the world. But it's always enough reaching this point where it's necessary. And then so Krishna comes, manifests the Prakat Leela, and those sadhakas take birth in the in that Leela. And at some point then they meet with him, right? We see it in the Rasa Leela. We've seen it now in the Vastraharana Leela, and now the Yavnik, the Brahmanis, Yavnapatnis. So Bhagavan, Devaki Sutta. Bhagavan means, well, God, right? And Devaki Sutta means son of Devaki. So again, in Mathura, there is more sense of Krishna's Aishvarya that takes precedence. So we can see it in even even in Vasudeva and Devaki. Vasudeva and Devaki are the parents of Krishna in Mathura, but when he's born and manifests 4 arms, what kind of birth is that? That's obviously not a birth, and Vasudeva is not dumb. He could think, this is God has manifested. And so many prayers are there, right? Prayers of Vasudeva and Devaki. When Krishna is born in Mathura, in Vrindavan, he doesn't have 4 arms. There's no prayers, there's praise. The king's got a son. Nanda's got a son. Big celebration and so forth. Right? So obviously the point here is that the nature of the prem, the Vatsalya prem in this case of Vasudeva and Devaki, is not as intense as that of Nanda and Yashoda or Rohini. Not intense enough that if Krishna starts to manifest Aishvarya, it will push back on that Aishvarya and turn that Aishvarya into Madhurya conceptually. We see it also in Arjuna, who's also a friend of Krishna, but now he's a metropolitan friend, from the city. When Krishna shows himself in the Gita to be everything inside of him, the Sakya rasa of Arjuna recedes to the background, and there's some reverence comes. Not that he loses his Sakya rasa, but this display of Aishvarya causes his prem to shrink back, and he says, "Oh my God, hey Sakya, hey Krishna, hey Yadava, I called you so many names I called you." But to speak of the names that Arjuna calls him, you should hear what they call him in Vrindavan. They're not even written in the scripture. It's enough if you know, hey Saki, hey Yadava. Yeah, that's disparaging. Hey, you're Yadava, Arjuna is saying. Hey Saki, I sat on the same bed with you. Oh my God, and you're God. How could I do that? I might have made offense, something like that. Well, the names that they call him in Braj are worse than that, way worse than that. And they don't ever think they made a mistake. So it was inappropriate. So such is their intimacy. I've told the story before. It comes to my mind now. It's worth repeating. How when these boys sport in the forest as they do, as they come into boyhood and their intelligence starts to manifest more than in childhood, then they invent games. Right, they're very creative. And they have many different games with balls, which they use fruits for. Grapefruits, oranges, amalakis, this one, that one, different types of fruits, right? So they make up ball games. And in ball games, Brahma is the best, Balaram is the best, very dexterous. No one can handle the ball, whatever shape, better than Balaram. So on one occasion, they made up a game, and the game was that everybody gets a ball, and you have to throw it at the other person. And if someone gets hit by a ball, they're out of the game. The one who's left standing, who didn't get hit by a ball, is the winner. So everybody's throwing balls at one another, or some of them are teaming up temporarily, right? All right, we'll make a pact. The 3 of us will charge a ball around. Of course, if there's only 3 left, then they'll go against one another because only one standing left, not hit by a ball, is the winner. Sounds like fun, huh? So they are throwing balls at one another, and Krishna is a little hard to defeat. So some of them make a pact, right, and a plan. While Balaram is best at handling the balls, no one is as fast moving as Krishna. Very agile. He's more agile. So they make a plan, and that is that 4 boys will go behind a banyan tree and hide there. And then a bunch of us, all of us, will get together and we'll throw balls at Krishna, chase him towards the banyan tree. And even if we miss with our balls, we'll be standing ready to throw us, and the 4 will come out from behind the tree and hit him with the ball. And so they do this, and Krishna calls foul. This is unfair.
Oh, he said foul.
Yeah, foul. And he asked Balaram, you should be the rep. This is a foul. This is unfair what they've done. And he says, why is it unfair? He says, because I'm the son of a king. I can't be treated like this. I should have get deferential treatment. And they've ganged up on me. Boo! Oh, that goes over like a lead balloon. Oh, you think you should have deferential treatment. We'll tell you what we think about that. Tie him up to the banyan tree. That's what they did. They tied him to the banyan tree, disqualified him from the game, and went on playing as he stood tied to the tree, watching and weeping and weeping and weeping. Now the question is, why was he weeping? Why was he weeping? He was weeping not because he was kicked out of the game. He was weeping because he said to himself, today I have attained Sakyarasa. I'm being treated equally by everyone. My old sense of any difference from them has completely been destroyed. I've attained now this ideal. So beautiful. Right? So such is the intimacy of Sakyarasa. And they called him out here. Now, we should not be hungry. You should be feeding us. And so Sukadeva says what? Then Krishna speaks out. Now, Bhagavan Devaki Sutta. So Bhagavan Devaki Sutta these words are used because the whole reason that they're there again is coming to the fore, right? Because these Yagnapatnis, they're in Mathura. They're the sense of Krishna's a little more that he's God, and they've come from Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam. This is kind of central to their sadhana for yugas and yugas, right? There they are. There he's thought to be the son of Devaki. It's a reference to their prem, sensibilities that they're coming out of from Mathura, right? Or surrounded by. And the idea that he's Bhagavan refers to also the words used by Sukadeva, because he knows. He says, well, why is he going there anyway, where he's called Devaki Sutta in that vicinity? Because he's Bhagavan, which means he knows something that everybody else doesn't know. What is that? He knows Bhaktyaya Viprabharyaya Prasidan Idam Abravit. He knows, because he's Bhagavan, about the bhakti, Bhaktyaya Viprabharyaya, of the wives of the Vipras, of the Brahmins. He's aware of that. They called in their life as sadhakas, just like the sages have done upon his omniscience. He was relating intimately with his devotees, still as the side of them that could hear their prayers. And now again, their prayers have reached a point where there should be, the union should come about. So this is again a whole secret. Why, what this is all about. Why the boys are hungry. Why the lunches weren't taken. Why Krishna told, bring the lunch, meet us there. And he didn't go there. So Krishna speaks. They address both Ram and Krishna. You should solve the problem, but Krishna comes forward and gives a reply. Not Ram, not both of them. Because he speaks in one sense on behalf of both of them, but in another sense because he created the problem. He's taking responsibility for it. And he knows what he wants to do here. He wants to accomplish a couple of things. He wants to reveal to us forever the shallowness of mindless Vedic rituals in pursuit of things that can be so lacking in terms of being a substantial adherence to the Veda that you could dismiss Vishnu as just one of the gods. When the whole idea of the Varnashram, Yajna vai Vishnu, Yajna is for Vishnu, and Vishnu alone, Bhoktaram Jakatapasam, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, Suridam, Sarvabhutanam, he says. Gita says, I am the enjoyer of all sacrifice. Everything's meant for me. And if you know this, well, then we'll be on friendly terms. This is the beginning of bhakti, right? You know this. So he's aware of these ladies. And the question arises in some of the commentary, well, why, how did these ladies get there? What's their position? These wives of the Brahmins that they could call him, and that is all there in bhakti. They have bhakti. They have bhakti sukriti, and bhakti. Now they have bhakti prem bhakti. They've gone through sadhana bhakti. They had bhakti sukriti. They did sadhana bhakti. They attained bhava bhakti. They attained prem bhakti. And now they're here to develop further their prem bhakti. And I'm coming now to certify. You've done it. You're here. So Krishna speaks out. So we're going to give the boys some instructions. What does he say? He says, Prayata deva yajanam brahmana brahmavadinaha satram andirasam nama hi aste sarvakamyaya. So he says, you boys, you're hungry? Okay, here's what you do. Nearby, these sophisticated Brahmins from the city, they're having a sacrifice of Angirasa. This is some kind of sacrifice that takes like 24 days. So it's a big yajna. I remember when we installed Krishna and Balaram in the Krishna Balaram Mandir. It was a 3-day affair. And all these Brahmins came and performed all types of, it was just, like another language, rituals, mantras, bring this, and do that, and so forth. So Prabhupada sat in his room, and every now and then there was a function for the acharya, like come now, put tulsi on the feet of the deity. So he probably would come out and do that. So this went on for 3 days, and we, pretty much his disciples, we couldn't participate in it. We didn't know, what it was all about, what's going on. It was part of the installation of the deities, and these Brahmins were doing it. It was a big thing at that time too, because 5 Brahmin boys from the village were going to be taking initiation from Prabhupada, which means they would have been eating chapatis cooked by Westerners, and so there was a lot of pressure on them. How can you do that? You're Brahmin, it's Brahmanism versus Vaishnavism and so forth. Varnashram criticizing. Not giving, they may be look like Vaishnavas, but they come from the West. How can they be Vaishnavas? We will not be, if we stand in their shadow, we'll have to take a bath in the Jamuna. This kind of thinking. 5 boys were coming forward. Such was the power of Prabhupada's campaign. It was a big thing. So all these Brahmins rituals and so on. Of course, when it was all over, then we performed Sankirtan, and the deity stores were opened. Krishna and Balaram stood before us, and there was Prabhupada offering arati. And I was right there at the front altar with the rail. Have you ever been there? The rail comes around, holding on that rail. And Prabhupada turned, waved that charmer, fanning me and the other devotees. Tears poured out of my eyes like a fountain, weeping. In the ecstasy, what it meant to what it meant to Prabhupada that this had finally he done it. This was the crowning jewel of all of his accomplishments to establish Krishna Balaram temple in Vrindavan, and have his disciples accepted, to showcase his bhava. He designed, the deity from his heart, those deity, that configuration of the deity, which you'll see everywhere now, wherever they install Krishna Balaram, it's pretty much the same. There is Krishna with his hand on the shoulder of Balaram, hand on his hip, holding the stick like this. This appeared in the heart of Prabhupada, right? Then he told his disciples how the deity should be carved. And that Krishna Balaram temple, or from there, Krishna Balaram temples have sprouted here, there, in ISKCON, other places beyond. He was tendering to something that had not been given attention for a long time in Gaudiya Sampradaya, for a long time. But you can see that the current was there, such receptiveness was there on the part of so many to the worship of Krishna and Balaram. Right? But now you can go. Now, when I first went to before the Krishna Balaram temple was established, you could not find a Krishna Balaram deity anywhere in Vrindavan amongst all the deity makers, Mukutwalas, and so forth. You could find Gauratai, Radha Krishna, Bala Krishna. You always find a Hanuman or something, a Shiva or what. You never see a Krishna Balaram deity. Never, ever, ever, anywhere. You go there now, you'll find in every shop they got a Krishna Balaram deity. All different sizes, different, made out of different materials, and so on and so forth. All the Mukutwalas catering to that. It's a big thing what he did. That Bala. What an ocean, Sakya, a huge wave, I should say, from the ocean of Bhakti Rasa, of Sakya Rasa, he brought to the world, really appropriately so, as Sridhar Maharaj said, empowered by Nityananda Prabhu himself, who was in a wide scale also, did the same thing at the time of Mahaprabhu. So anyway, when installation was all over, Prabhupada told us, actually, everything was complete by our Sankirtan. By our Sankirtan, it was complete. Once I was in the South India, Agabha and Sridhar Maharaj was opening a temple. So he invited some Brahmanas from the Madhva Sampradaya, I think they're from the Madhva Sampradaya, and to do the yajna and then install the deities. And so it was quite a long procedure, very beautiful too, so many colors, and we observed and they performed it. And then when it was finished, then we picked up the deities and brought them to the altar, accompanied by Nam Sankirtan. When we did that, those Brahmins looked at us like we were from another planet. What's that? What are they doing? What are they doing? Golokeru Premodhan Harinam Sankirtan. It comes from Golok. They have some sense of kirtan, obviously, in Vaikuntha. Once I was staying in Rishikesh, and there's a Satyanarayan temple there, Lakshmi Narayan temple. And so we would go every evening there to do kirtan, and I would speak to the devotees from Bhagavatam. There was a young brahmachari there. I think they were all from the Ramanuja Sampradaya. And one night, some sadhus, Ramanuja sadhus, came and stood before the deity, and they did kirtan. They chanted verses from the Bhagavatam. And I was listening, and I heard Krishna Varnam Krisha Krishnam Sankopam Gastapashadam Yagnai Sankirtana Prayer Yajanti Samedasaha Jayam Sada Paribabdam Adishtadoham Tirtaspadam Shibrimanichi Nutam Sharanyam Prityartiham Pranatapada Prabhavripotam Vande Mahapurushate Charanara Bindam Satvasudu Sajadarape Sitaraja Lakshmi. All beautiful verses. They were chanting the verses from the 11th canto, 5th chapter, about the Yuga avatars. And that night these are all verses about Mahaprabhu. They don't understand them to be verses about Mahaprabhu. It was so nice. There we were, devotees of Mahaprabhu, and they were saying, the deity was causing them to chant these verses on that day. It was so inspiring. And we performed kirtan after that also. And then we were leaving the next day, and the Pujari, who was younger, he said, can I come with you? He was very inspired by us. We said, sure, you can come with us. And then he, I think he said the night before, the next morning, then that night he said, only I have one question. Do I have to change my religion? We said, no, you had to change your religion. But in the morning, by the night, he was pressured either through his mind or some scars or others. And he didn't show up to leave with us. He liked it, but so the point is that this is a very new thing, right? This Nam Sankirtan was not even understood in Navadvip. At the time, they complained. The Hindus complained to the Muslim leader. These so-called Hindus are ruining our Hinduism. They're singing the name of Krishna out loud, and in the night, all night we can't even sleep. So, of course, our Goswamis showed us, it's all there in the scripture. It's not something made up here. This is all in the scripture. Now is the time for it to come out, and Mahaprabhu is the bearer of this Nam Sankirtan. This is the method to his madness, right? So here, Krishna gives them good instruction. He says, go to these Brahmins. They're performing a yajna, and they're concerned with Swarga Kamyaya. They want to go to heaven. This is their idea. This is the motivation behind. So this is total karma marg, right? He says, go there to sacrificial Brahmins. They're performing they're learned in the Vedic injunctions. They perform austerities. They've got all these qualities, and they got a desire to go to heaven from that. They're doing all this stuff to go to heaven. And this stuff is difficult. You got to learn how to do it, how to chant the mantras. You got to do it exactly right, like we said the other day. Otherwise, you're going to puff a smoke rather than successful sacrifice, right? Such as karma marg. It takes expertise and some austerity. There may be some fasting involved at different points, and so pay close attention. It's got 24-day sacrifice. Big thing going on in their minds. Big thing, right? What does Krishna tell them? Tatra gato gatvo dhanam gopa pat chatasmad visarditaha kirtayanto bhagavata aryasya mamat chabhidam. He tells them, go there. They're performing a big sacrifice, gopas. And in that sacrifice, there's odanam. Go there, gata odana. Odana means rice. So there's going to be food offered in the sacrifice. So go there and speak to them on our behalf. First, invoke the name of Ram, as they just did earlier. Because he's the older brother. And also because, why? Because, well, in Mathura and even in Braj, it's known that Balaram is the son of Vasudeva. Now, in substance, he's the son of Nanda, adopted son. But aside from that, he's the son of Vasudeva and Rohini. So he is a Kshatriya. So the Kshatriya will be given more respect by these Brahmins than some Gopa from the village. So perhaps by chanting the name of Balaram first, maybe you can dislodge them, is the implication from what they're doing, rather than my name. They have no understanding of me. The further away you get from Braj, theologically, the closer you're going to get, to what these Brahmins are about. It's on the other end of the religious spectrum from the prem of Braj. So we'll go a little further away from that. There's not much hope here, but invoke the name of Ram first, right? But he says, basically he says, go there and do kirtan, kirtayanto bhagavata, of these names of God, which happen to be our names too. We were named after God, Ram and Krishna. So chant these names. Aryasya Mama Chadita. And explain further that you've been sent by us, because they want to assure the boys are thinking, okay, first he tells them to go there. Packed into this verse, we find he tells them to go there and chant our names. He says, go there and do Sankirtan. That's what he's saying. Do Sankirtan. And they're thinking, and ask for food, right? So the boys are thinking, well, how can we ask for food? We're Gopas. They're Brahmins. Brahmins can beg, but Vaishyas can't beg in the Varnashram. So it would be inappropriate. So Krishna says, no. Go in my name and beg in my name and in the name of Ram. Mention his name first. Sing our names and praise. And on behalf of us, ask. Implication is, you're Gopas, but you're Vaishnavas. It's true that Vaishyas can't beg in the Varnashram society, charity. Brahmins can. Vaishyas should be giving in charity, and Kshatriyas relative to their wealth and so on and so forth. And the Brahmins, selfless as they should be, they can beg, but Vaishnavas can beg. Vaishnavas, they do kirtan, they beg, please become a devotee. This is their begging. They go from house to house. They perform Sankirtan. They go from house to house and do Bhagavad Katha, this kind of kirtan. They take a little milk, like Sukadev. They take a little something, right? They do Madhukari, like a bee. They go from flower to flower. You only stay long enough, not to eat, whatever they might get, but to share something. A godbrother of mine once told me, I told this story before, he said, I'm going to such and such village today. Why don't you come with me? Madhukari is really good there. I said, you're not doing Madhukari. Madhukari is very good, means they put butter on the chapatis over there. Lots of people give over there. You can get, it's easy to get fed over there. This is not Vaishnava consciousness. We don't have any hunger. We don't eat, right? We only honor prasad. We do Madhukari for them. We're going there to benefit them, right? It said Sukadev stayed long enough to milk a cow, during which he would share Bhagavad Gita with the householders, with the Vaishyas that he stayed, for example, in terms of having a cow and so forth. So Vaishnavas can beg. On behalf of me, who has everything, you can beg. Beg people to stop thinking that they are the providers, or that anyone else can provide for them. And show them that I am the only provider. Let them come under my shelter, that they can actually be nourished. This is the work of the Vaishnavas. Go there in the midst of all their sacrifice. Yes, they know how to do yajna. It's really complicated. They know how to chant at what time, right? They performed austerities. They're just brimming with Vedic knowledge, but they don't know the purpose of the Vedas. If they did, then they would enter the kirtan with you, right? Satatam kirtayam tumam itam taschadudavata. This is the way the devotees conduct themselves, and they are Mahatmanas tumam parta daivim prakriti mashrita. He says they are the great souls. So he extols here the virtues of Sankirtan over all these Vedic rituals, and in order to do Sankirtan, you don't need to be very learned in the Vedas. You don't need to be tapasvi. You don't need to have so many other qualifications. You can just be a country bumpkin, a cowherd boy. Pick up the kartal and a mridanga and beat it with love, as Prabhupada said. Do kirtan. That's all. The point here is, from the text we see, they've been glorified in the previous text. So many qualifications they had. But they were useless. They got intoxicated by their qualifications and couldn't recognize Krishna and Balaram, at whose behest these cowherd boys were coming and inquiring. Now they'll inquire Well, we'll get to that. So then Sukadev concludes this section. He says, thus instructed by Bhagwan, iti adishta bhagavata gatvaya chanta te tata kritanjali puta vipran dandavat patita bhuru. Thus instructed by God, he says, the cowherd boys went there and submitted their request. They stood before the Brahmins with folded hands in supplication, and they fell flat on the ground to offer respect. Trinadapi sunichena dorodapi sahishnana amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. So here we see the kirtan. This should be accompanied by this mood. Mahaprabhu says, when you do kirtan, with this fourfold further qualification or disposition, that you're humble like a blade of grass. They didn't go and say, we're here on behalf of Krishna and Balaram. You are only Yagnik Brahmins. You should listen to us. We have something to teach you. No. They paid obeisances to the Brahmins. They thought, oh, you have so many qualifications. What qualification do we have? We're coming here to beg on behalf of Krishna and Balaram. Now that's something. Surely you'll think that's significant. We're just, you're great by other estimation, and Krishna and Balaram are great. We're just the intermediary here. They're hungry. We're coming on their behalf. They're thinking, oh, they'll definitely give. And so, of course, we see they didn't want to give. But the humility point here of the cowherds in the midst of their Sankirtan is emphasized. Right? Mahaprabhu says, if we do kirtan with this disposition, then very quickly you'll get praying. Shri Krishna Nam Sankirtan ki jai, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Bodh Premananda. Yes.
The sense of duty that arose in the voice as Krishna was speaking, and then seemingly passed on. Is that like a sensual God that came?
We'd have to look through all 33 for something that would be appropriate, but I don't think we could categorize it as such.
Mara?
Yeah.
You said that Balaram was thought of by the people of Mathura and so on as the son of Vasudeva.
Yeah.
But when Balaram was conceived, you could say, in the prison of Kamsa, it appeared that Devaki had a miscarriage.
That's right.
And Vasudeva, when they said he was transferred
To Rohini's womb.
to Rohini's womb.
Right.
But who knows that he's the son of Vasudeva?
Because Vasudeva is the husband of Rohini.
Of her.
Yeah. And Rohini was living in.
She was living in the Braj.
No, she was living in Mathura. And she came to the Braj.
And gave birth there.
And gave birth there. Yeah. She came there, and she was in a similar stage of pregnancy as Yashoda, so they very much bonded,
Right.
so forth. Right. Yes, he the son of Vasudeva.
So
But that's only the formal reality. There are a number of instances in the Bhagavatam where Balaram says to their face, "I'm actually the son of Nanda," and they agree. They understand.
Yeah. Because I know that when Nanda went to Mathura with Vasudeva, Vasudeva was still thinking that Krishna is my son.
He thinks that all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
He didn't do it.
He thinks that he's actually my son, but he understands also from the point of view of affection and love that Nanda Maharaj has more affection for that his son has more affection for Nanda Maharaj because he's raised by Nanda Maharaj. All of his whole childhood up until his adolescence is all there. So that forms in anyone a strong bond, right? And it shows up. Shows up from time to time, even in Dwarka, in Mathura.
He was thinking though is that Krishna is my son.
Yeah.
And Nanda didn't bother to tell him, no, actually, he's my son. Nanda didn't tell Vasudeva that Krishna is his son.
No. he tells himself and the others. Yeah. All right, so we'll stop there.
Sorry.
Shishidhaji Gopal ki jai. Or Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Hari Bol. Let's see, Rohini Nanda. Hari Bol, Rohini. Good to see you. You've got a right name for this Leela.
Yeah.
And these questions.